Once we have that code in a file, a .fx file, what do? Well, we want to take a look at how we compile and run what I call the hard way. In other words, using the JavaFX SDK command line tools. So looking at compiling our JavaFX application, we'll run that test.fx code through the JavaFX compiler. Inside of the JavaFX SDK, there is a bin folder. And that bin folder then contains a JavaFX C.exe tool. For those of you familiar with Java, boy, that name probably sounds pretty familiar. And indeed, it works and operates pretty muc the same as the JavaC.exe tool, our Java compiler tool, in other words, in the Java community. So JavaFX C is the tool that compiles our JavaFX scripts into none other than class files. So in this example, once I run JavaFX C over test.fx, I'm generating a set of class files that allow me to then execute in a Java virtual machine our JavaFX script code. How do we run the code? Well, in order to run the application, our JavaFX script application, we'll use another tool, the JavaFX.exe. This is a tool that kicks off our Java virtual machine and the JavaFX script runtime, which runs on top of the Java virtual machine. Again, this is a tool that's stored in the /bin folder of the JavaFX SDK. Again, operating very similar to the actual Java.exe, Java virtual machine, in the Java environment. Once I run this tool, that's how I get my results from my cool running window. By the way, the JavaFX, JavaFXC.exes, both have -help tags, or if you will, options on them, which allow you to see the help on either of those two tools. In fact, you'll see that the help provided by both these tools is very, very similar to that provided by the Java environment. Alternately, if we want to run our application on, say, a browser or via WebStart, or we want to package it up to run on a mobile emulator, well, that's when we'll need another tool provided by the JavaFX SDK, a tool called the JavaFX Packager. Again, this is another tool stored in the /bin folder of the JavaFX SDK. What does this particular tool do? Well, it provides all the files necessary for us, at least in this first example case, for running and seeing our application run via a browser or via a WebStart engine. So, with the JavaFX Packager, we can pass in the actual application class name, in this case our test from test.fx, and we can specify where the source and destination directories are. And what does that produce? None other than a set of files that can be used to now run our JavaFX script via a browser. So it gives us an HTML page and a jar file and some JNLP files that allow our application to run via WebStart or via browser. If we want to run on a mobile emulator or a mobile device, well, we need to package things up in the form of JAD files and jar files. How do we do that? We'll use that same JavaFX Packager provided with the JavaFX SDK. The only addition thing we'll have to do is when we run the JavaFX Packager, add a -p mobile switch that provides this mobile output. So when running the JavaFX Packager, again, use the same parameters but include the -p mobile. That will give us JAD and jar files that can then be run, at least right now, via an emulator. Devices are anticipated to be available here in the spring and summer of 2009. In fact, when introducing JavaFX, Sun, and I should say JavaFX Mobile here, Sun also worked to provide a lot of support and have a lot of the vendors that provide our devices standing up with Sun saying, yep, we wholeheartedly support JavaFX and JavaFX Mobile and plan to have devices available in the not too distant future. So to run our application, our JavaFX application, via a mobile emulator, simply use the emulator tool that's also provided with the JavaFX SDK. In the /emulator/bin subfolder of the SDK, you'll find an emulator.exe. We simply pass in the JAD file created to that emulator, and we see our cool running application running via that emulator. Now that's coding, compiling, and running a JavaFX application, what I call the hard way, again using command line tools provided by the JavaFX SDK. What about using a JavaFX aware IDE? Well, to do that, we first of all need to get one of those JavaFX aware IDEs. Again, NetBeans 6.5 or Eclipse with the appropriate JavaFX SDK plugin is required. Once we have one of these particular IDEs, we'll create a JavaFX project. Just as you're probably aware in using Eclipse or NetBeans, you always have to have your code stored in a project. Usually those are either web projects or vanilla Java projects or JEE projects. Now we'll create a JavaFX project. That allows us to create JavaFX script files and classes and stages. Each one of these we'll take a look at a bit more on after we take a look at just some introductory to JavaFX coding. Source code editors in these IDEs also give us lots of support. For example, they do color coding of our JavaFX specific syntax, provide us all sorts of code complete, as well as code folding in a JavaFX way. There's JavaFX Java docs and syntax error highlighting, just as we would expect to see in any kind of programming language, in particular in Java. There's also a JavaFX palette, as shown here on the right hand side of the screen, that allows us to quickly and easily drag and drop components or elements from the JavaFX API into our JavaFX script code. Now, unfortunately, one thing you will find that these IDEs we would hope to offer but don't yet, and that is there is no visual editing of our JavaFX script. In other words, we're building graphical user interfaces in large part with JavaFX. Today, those particular editors don't support the drag and drop visual display of JavaFX code. However, they all intend, I should say all the IDE providers intend to offer that capability in the not too distant future. When we go to run an application using the JavaFX SDK aware IDE, then we'll find that there is really no manual compiling or packaging. All that's done automatically under the covers for us by the IDE. Simply pick your particular application and your method of execution choice, and away you go. And when we talk about the method of execution, what are we talking about? Picking whether you want the JavaFX application run as a desktop app, web start, in a browser, or in mobile emulation mode. And when you look at mobile emulation, typically you have the option of picking the type of mobile emulator you want to actually see your application run in. For example, a default mobile phone versus a touchscreen PDA type of mobile emulator. So let's take a look at a couple of these IDEs, NetBeans 6.5 and Eclipse with the JavaFX plugin, just to get a flavor and a feel for what they look like. Here is NetBeans 6.5, and again I've got the project that I had shown you earlier and ran the Going to Intertech little JavaFX application. This is a JavaFX project, selecting on any .fx file, again a JavaFX script file. Shows you that in many ways, when you first start to look at it, the JavaFX code might look like Java code. We'll learn more about that coming up in a bit. But you'll start to see as we slide down through the code, there are some distinct differences, yet there's still color coding and highlighting as you would expect to see in any kind of programming language editor. Again, there is the palette that allows me to drag and drop items onto my code. For example, I can drag and drop from this set of colors directly into my actual application code. And you can see right away, since I dragged and dropped it into the wrong place, that these editors are JavaFX script aware, and so it highlights the fact that this is some sort of exception for me. When you go to run the application, again, simply click on the particular run mode you'd like to see and allow your application to be executed in that particular type of environment. So a very neat and easy way of doing execution in these IDEs.